Hello! So in today's video, I wanted to do a recap of 2024 because this has been the first full year for my small business. So I thought it'd be fun to discuss everything that happened. Uh, One surprising insight that came up while doing markets and what I would do differently next year. So stick around for my own real life experience, real life lessons, and tips I've learned while running my crochet small business this year. I went to a bunch of craft shows. I started doing wholesale, received a grant.
How? Hold on, bro.
So keep watching for all of the details, and don't forget to like and subscribe to tag along on all my future wins and learning experiences. Okay, so let's start with craft shows because going to craft shows to sell my crochet products was the main reason that this whole small business shenanigans started last year. So as I said, this is my first full year of running my small business. And one of my goals for my small biz this year was to do at least one market each month, starting in March. That was the plan. So because, right after the holidays in like January and February, you know what I mean? People don't tend to do a ton of shopping. So I was like, let's just skip January and February. Um, and I'll just use that time to like market prep and start going to shows in March, because then in March it's spring, so it's like a new season that people might want to start decorating for. Also there'd be like Easter coming up, so that would be a good month to start. So the number of shows that I did each month. Get my book out. My handy dandy notebook of notes. Okay, so in March, I did 2 shows. April, I did 1. May, I did 2. June, I did 1. But this was also the biggest show I did ever. It was a 3-day show. In July, I did 2. August 2, September 1, October 1, and November 1. And I did end up skipping December because I got super burnt out of doing shows. And also we ended up doing like a family vacation the first whole week of December. And then with the holidays coming up, I just didn't have a ton of time for shows and stuff. So 3 shows from this year were repeats from last year. So they went well enough last year that I went back this year. And I do plan on continuing with those shows next year as well. These are growing, successful shows, and I love the organizers for these events as well, so that's a plus. There were also a few shows that I decided I am not gonna go back ever again. In fact, I would never go to any events hosted by these organizers. It's almost upsetting when you go to a show and the organizer seems disinterested in you, the vendor, and just like what's going on in general. Like they have no interest in the vendors, how they're doing and how things are going for them. When the vendors are the ones like making your show, basically, like without these vendors, you don't have an event. But then it's almost like their mindset is like, I already made my money from these vendors. They already paid me, so like I don't care anymore, which is not the way to go about it. Like again, I would not go back to this person's shows, and I know other vendors also felt the same, but anyway. So yeah, that's okay though, because there's plenty of other shows and events that I had to skip out on this year that I really wanted to go to. So I am going to try to apply for those for next year. So I went to a total of 13 craft shows this year, including a 3-day show. As I said, that was my first, well, I guess it wasn't my first multi-day show. I did do a 2-day show last year, but this was actually a Bigfoot festival. and it's a 3-day show. I had heard that this was like a really big event, even though it's still fairly new. So I knew kind of going in that it was going to be a busy show. So I was like super nervous about it, but I ended up having a ton of fun there. I also made a lot of money there as well. That was this show was my most profitable show, which is, I mean, it's crazy because it was a 3-day show. The first day was only a few hours in the evening on Friday, but even that day alone, for just a few hours, I made more than a lot of the craft shows I've been to this year. So yeah, very successful show. Very successful show. I am definitely going to apply again for next year. Things that I would do differently in regards to craft shows next year. So I already know like the shows that I'm definitely gonna go back to next year, shows I'm willing to give another try maybe. And also shows that I'm not gonna go back to. And then shows that I have not gone to yet that I want to apply for next year. Um, I know all of that. But one thing that I definitely want to do differently next year is do more shows in the fall and the winter. So this year I started out strong, like 2 shows in March and like consistently 1 or 2 shows each month. And towards the end, I was getting so burnt out. Like I was burnt out of crocheting. I was burnt out of going to craft shows. Like I was getting tired. And so next year, what I want to do is start the shows in April. Because the 2 shows I went to in March, one was basically a flop. The other one was okay, that I would consider going back to, but I'm not sure yet. But yeah, I'm most likely going to start the shows in April next year and then just do more in like September, October, November, and then maybe 1 or 2 in December. So try to do more at the end of the year next year and see if that's more profitable than earlier in the year or not. We'll see. Also, this was the one surprising insight that I had this year while doing craft shows. So just because that there's a craft show at a well-established event does not mean that you'll do well in sales or that a lot of people will come to the craft show. Um, so I had this happen twice this year. So actually, the first one was in May. I went to a local festival, and this was a very well established, well known festival. So a lot of people go there. There's a ton of events and entertainments, family friendly things. So, um, and I had attended it as well a couple years ago. Yeah, in 2022 with my husband and daughter, and we had fun there. They had a ton of like kid friendly events, and I also checked out the craft shows. Because this was before I started my crochet small business, and but I was kind of like thinking about doing the craft shows. I wanted to look at it and kind of see like, is this an event that I, might do in the future, whatever. So anyway, again, well established fair. Um, but when I attended as a vendor, it wasn't a flop by any means, but in proportion to how many people were there, like at the event in general, not many people came to the craft show. So it was almost like the craft show was set up in like the farthest end of the entire festival. And so like people weren't, they're, unless you're actually like coming to shop, support local businesses, whatever, like people weren't just not really coming to the event, to the craft show. And then with a couple hours left to the show, like a big rainstorm came. And this is also where my fairly new canopy tent broke. so sad. I'm still sad about it. I think this was like the second or third time I used this new tent because last year I'd been borrowing a canopy tent from my in-laws because they just happened to have one. And then when I started to make more money or whatever, I was like, let me get my own tent. Um, and I really liked this tent. It's a good tent. So anyway, I got it, and again, this was like only the second or third show where I took it, and the rainstorm came. I'm serious, the wind was so scary. Like at one point we were tearing down because the rain was getting so bad, and like obviously no one was walking around shopping. It was outdoors. So my husband was in our car, like pulling it back closer to the tent, and I was underneath the tent, packing my plushies away and all this stuff. And a huge gust of wind came. The tents were weighted down. They had weights on them. Didn't matter. It got picked up by the wind, and like while I was underneath it, and it like collapsed on its side, and I screamed, and I tried to grab like a wall like as hard as I could, but like you know and one of the like poles on the tent, it like fell onto like a car. No damage to the car, but that must have like bent it or something. We didn't notice it at first. We were just like, okay, let's get it back up, and we continued tearing down. But when it came to like folding the tent in, we couldn't do it. It wouldn't go in. So we were already soaked at this point because we are tearing down in the middle of a rainstorm, and we're trying to like wrestle with the tent. My husband is trying to like force it in somehow, and it just wasn't working, and we figured out there was something definitely wrong with it. But the thing was like slightly bent. It wasn't even that bad, but it just refused to bend. And in the process of trying to figure out like to like try to force this thing in, um one of the other legs like completely did like a 90-degree bend. And so it was yeah, it was totally broken at this point. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't blame the weather on the organizers, but I think regardless of like, even if the event went on the whole day and we finished it up, normal, I don't think we would have gone back because of the reason that I stated. People just were not coming to the craft show. The last show that I did this year, in November, it was also my first time going there. It was the farthest I've traveled for a show. It was like a 45-minute drive. Um, it was so busy there, and I was like really surprised how busy it was. Um, but considering how many shoppers were there, I just wasn't selling. I don't know why. And so that's the one where um I probably wouldn't go back there, which is really sad because I this was like probably the most well organized event I've ever been to. Everything was so like professional and just like very well done. And I really appreciated that. But I wouldn't go back there for that show. But they are considering doing a show in the spring next year for the first time because they've been doing this winter show for a while, I think. But they've never done one in the spring. But I think they got enough feedback from vendors this at this show that they would come back for a spring show. But if they did that, I think I would go back to it just to see if it being a different season makes any change to my sales in that area. Or maybe it was like my location within the venue that was the issue. I don't know. But if they do proceed with the spring show, I told them I am willing to commit to their show in April. Next up is wholesale. So my last video actually was all about my wholesale experience and wholesale journey. So if you have not watched that video, I will link it in the description. So make sure you go check that out for all of the details. But to recap, I got to join this large network of artists in the summer called the Wilds Cooperative of Pennsylvania. And I started selling wholesale to their 3 physical stores. And since August, I fulfilled 5 wholesale orders for them. And each order was at least $300, which for me is equivalent to an entire craft show. Like I made less than 300 at many of the shows I attended this year, so it's actually better. Um, I get to sit in my room and crochet, which is the best part of the small business. Um, and I get to make more than I would at a whole craft show, without the hassle of loading the car, unloading the car, setting up a booth, tearing down, and so right now there's only a few things on my wholesale listing, but I plan on adding a bunch more to that listing this winter, so they have more options to order from next year, and hopefully they will continue to order wholesale. So yeah, wholesale definitely has been a life changer for me. I do enjoy it. I love working with the organization. They're all super nice, super professional, super sweet people. They're very helpful. I've also set up an online shop through them as well, which, by the way, I do need to put more listings up on there too. But, online shops I find are very hard. I don't know why. And I do know why. It's because I hate taking pictures of my products. It's I don't know why. It's so I just can't do it. I don't enjoy it. Sorry. Part 3, grant. I applied for a small business grant. That was me looking at my note. Which involved me writing a business plan. Here's what happened. So one of the event organizers that I met through doing craft shows, they shared with all the pop-up vendors for the event about a local small business grant that is being given out. And what they told me was that they're basically like trying to give the money away, for the small business owners. And so I'm like, hey, I could use some extra money. I could use some more yarn. So I was like, I'm gonna apply for it. So there were, a few steps involved in the whole process. And one of the steps being I had to reach out to another local organization called the Small Business Development Center. Now this organization, so amazing. They also actually helped me get sole proprietorship last year when I was just getting started. When I tell you I couldn't have done any of it without them, because the process is not, I mean, it wasn't like a confusing process by any means, but like I didn't know anything about, starting a small business and like any of this stuff. And so to have someone there, like literally walk me through step by step was so amazing. But they were involved in this process of the grant giving process. So anyway, so I reached out to the consultant that helped me last year. So he helped me write the business plan. They actually had a template for a business plan where you could just customize it to be more like on brand for your small business, and then you can, edit the text and stuff like that. But using the template was optional. You could just create your own thing entirely, but I'm not about reinventing the wheel, so I just used the template they had and it worked out fine. And so the business plan involved me writing some easy stuff like about the business, about me, about it had to have a mission statement, company values, about my product, my pricing strategy, the target market.
I'm not gonna lie, I did use ChatGPT for some of this stuff.
I used ChatGPT a lot because it's really good at making things sound more like official and like professional. So, like, if you're still sleeping on ChatGPT, what are you doing? So anyway, and then there were like the hard stuff that I needed to like do research on and write about, like competition, local competition or online, financial overview from 2023, like the expenses and the income. And this was that was a big area of stress for me when I was writing this. But again, everyone was so super helpful, very encouraging, and I did it. And also budget for next year. So from like June 2024 to like May 2025, how much I plan on spending on what. And how I would use the funds if I received the grant. So all of this was in the business plan. um, there were a couple phone calls, a bunch of emails back and forth with the organization that was giving away the grant. And again, they were so helpful. And as I was told in the beginning, they wanted you to get the grant. So they were so helpful in walking you through the steps and, helping you apply for it and all this. So I got the grant. It was a $2,000 grant, and I have spent all of it by now. This was like in the summer, so. And I was looking at my finances like last month, just like for the whole year, and see how it's been going. And I was thinking, like, how did I make so much profit, so much more profit? And that is because I spent months spending the grant to buy materials like yarn. Oh no, my crochet hook broke. Buy a crochet hook. I bought a new square terminal. So instead of the tiny little free swipey thing, I got an actual like chip reader as well as a swipe. It can take Apple Pay, Google Pay. It prints receipts. So yeah, I bought all this stuff. And so all of the money that I was making from selling plushies in those months were pure profit. Because before it's like I'd make money at craft shows, but then I'd have to spend a lot of that money to buy more yarn or whatever. But after I got the grant, again, I spent months spending this grant. And so I was basically just getting to keep all of the money I was making at the markets. Now, I should be receiving like a tax form for this grant. So I do need to pay taxes on it. I don't know how much that's going to be. We'll see after if it really was worth it. We'll see. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more behind the scenes moments, crochet tips, and life as a small business mompreneur. Also, check out the description for some affiliate links to some of my favorite market display items and tools that I personally use and love. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. If there's something specific you'd like to see next, let me know. Thanks again for tagging along with DeLong, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!